Okay, welcome 5th graders to another science review lesson. Hopefully you have your notebooks out, you're paying attention, you're ready to go, you're staying focused, blah, blah. And we're ready to go. Okay, here we go. First of all, this lesson is on the properties of matter. And you need to know that there are 3 properties of matter. There is gas, liquid, and solid. Okay? And it's all based upon how the atoms are moving around or what they look like. Okay? Inside, whatever it may be. Water, steel, a brick, our own flesh. What do the atoms look like? In gas, the atoms are moving around really fast. They're really excited. Okay? And oftentimes, gas, you can't see it because the atoms are so spread out and they're moving around very fast. So that's gas. Then you have a liquid. The atoms are moving a lot slower. They're a lot closer together. And most of the times you can see liquid, for example, water, like your orange juice, milk, that sort of thing. The atoms, once again, are moving kind of slow. And they are closer together. In a solid, the atoms are packed tightly together and they're in nice little rows. Okay, so they're arranged in a pattern in solids and they're tightly packed together and they're not moving very much at all. Okay, so those are the 3 different states of matter. You're also going to need to know mass is how much stuff is inside. And we talked about that a little bit in the gravity and orbit lesson. But once again, you're going to need to know what mass is. And the reason you're going to need to know what mass is because you need to know that matter, I don't see it up here actually. Oh, here it is. Matter is anything with mass. So as long as there is stuff inside. And volume. Matter is anything with mass and volume. Mass is how much stuff is inside. Volume is how much space an object takes up. As long as it has those 2 things, it is made of matter. Okay? Let's talk about mass in relation to volume. As you can see here, these squares, let's pretend that they're exactly the same size. Square A and square B. Which square has more mass? Square A has more mass because there's more stuff inside. Which square has more volume? Trick question. They both have the same exact volume because they're both taking up the exact same amount of space, right? So that's the difference between mass and volume. Mass is also kind of the same thing with density. The more mass an object has, the more dense it's going to be. Square A is more dense than square B because there's more stuff inside. It's how packed it is, okay? If it's squishy, it's going to be a lot less dense than something that when you squeeze is hard. Actually, that may not be the best example because you could have something that's hollow inside but hard, so I wouldn't use that example actually, but you'll get the idea. All right? Volume we've talked about, solids we talked about. Okay, now we're going to talk about the different ways that matter can change shape or form. Okay? One of those is called sublimation. Okay? Sublimation is where matter goes straight from solid to a gas. And we talked a little bit in class about dry ice. And dry ice is often used around Halloween time. People put dry ice in one of those big black cauldrons or pots. And it looks like that a witch's brew is going on because there's all this gas that's coming out of the black pot. That is called dry ice inside. And dry ice goes straight from a solid, so if you were to look inside of that black pot, you would just see a big solid cube of ice. And coming off of that solid cube of ice would be gas, and it would be coming out of there. Okay, it kind of looks like smoke. That's what sublimation is. That's a great example. Once again, it's something that goes from a solid, okay, Okay, so the atoms inside of the solid are still, they're barely moving, and they're in nice patterns, they're in a nice lines or arrangement. It goes straight from gas, so the atoms are taking off, they're moving around really fast, and they're escaping the surface of the hard blocked ice. Okay, so once again, straight from a solid to a gas is sublimation. Okay, now let's talk about some different ways that matter can change form or shape in regard to temperature. Okay, boiling point. Boiling point is the temperature at which any liquid changes from liquid form to gas form. Now, different kinds of liquids are going to have different temperatures for when they go from a liquid to a gas. But the main point is, whatever temperature that is that thing's boiling point. Okay, that is that liquid's boiling point. For orange juice, it may be a different temperature. For milk, it may be a different temperature. But whatever temperature it is for each of those liquids, that is that liquid's boiling point. Okay? Now, once again, the boiling point is when it goes from a liquid to a gas. Okay? So the atoms are kind of moving. They're not really in a pattern. They're kind of close together. And then as this heat in the pot starts heating up, the atoms move faster and faster until they move so fast that they actually escape the surface of the water and they go up into the air. Okay, and you've seen that when you see your parents cooking spaghetti or whatnot. As soon as you see that water start to boil and steam is coming out of the pot, that is the boiling point for that liquid. Okay? The next one is called the freezing point. Now, freezing point is the temperature at which a liquid turns to a solid. And once again, there might be different temperatures for different kinds of liquid for when they freeze. Like milk may freeze at some temperature, but orange juice may freeze at a completely different temperature. But at whatever point that liquid begins to freeze, that is that liquid's freezing point. Okay? So once again, freezing point is when the temperature at which a liquid will turn to solid. Okay? The melting point is the temperature at which a solid can turn to a liquid. Okay? Remember, the atoms in a solid are stiff. They're in nice little patterned rows. And once you put heat to those atoms, they're going to start to move around a little bit more, because remember, when you apply heat to atoms, they start moving around a little bit more. So the temperature at which the solid atoms start to move around like liquid, that is that solid's melting point. Just like I've mentioned before, there may be different temperatures depending on what kind of object or solid we're talking about. A solid ice cube is going to have a different melting point than a piece of steel, or like what your car door is made out of. Okay? It might take a lot hotter temperature for your car door to melt into liquid than it will for an ice cube to melt into liquid. For an ice cube to melt into liquid, it just takes kind of a hot day, not even that hot. Whereas to melt your car door into liquid, it's going to take a super hot temperature. All right? So, but at whatever temperature, either your car door turns to liquid or the ice cube, that is that object's or that solid's melting point. All right? Also, you want to look at evaporation. Evaporation is when the liquid turns to gas, and that's kind of an example of boiling point. So taking a couple steps back, just want to make sure I don't forget this. Evaporation is when the liquid gets heated up enough Okay, remember, when it starts heating up, they move around, then it escapes the surface of the water. And that's called evaporation. And we talked about that a little bit when we were discussing the water cycle. All right, so it's the same kind of thing, and that's a liquid to a gas. Okay, liquid, as soon as it rises off the surface of the water, it is now a gas. Right? I believe we've covered everything here. We talked about sublimation. Make sure, once again, that you understand the difference between mass and weight. Mass is how much stuff is inside. Weight is how strongly gravity pulls on it. So here on Earth, okay, I may weigh 180 pounds. If I go up to the moon, I may weigh a lot less because gravity isn't as strong, so it's not pulling down as hard. But I still have the same mass inside. It's still me up at the moon or on Earth. My insides don't change. So my mass will be the same, but my weight will be different. Okay, so that's crucial to keep in mind. Matter is anything that has stuff inside and takes up space. Okay? So once again, matter is anything that has mass, stuff inside, and volume that takes up space. Okay, so if it takes up space and it has stuff inside, it is made of matter. Okay. Well, I hope this lesson has helped you. Once again, this is the test review for properties of matter. Hopefully this has helped you. You can contact me on Edmodo, Facebook, or there's a little button on my classroom website that says Contact Mr. P. If you click on that, there will be a button that will go straight to my cell phone. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you guys.